The Red Arrival. How Russia landed in Burkina Faso. In the heart of the Sahel, where the red dust of the Sahara kisses the green shoulders of savannah, a silent revolution was underway. Burkina Faso, once a quiet West African country overshadowed by its powerful neighbors and racked by extremist violence, had become the center of an unfolding geopolitical drama. And at its core stood a young soldier president with fiery eyes and a revolutionary tongue, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. But this is not just a story of one man. It is the tale of a continent tired of foreign control, of soldiers who had lost faith in old alliances, and of a superpower re-emerging with calculated moves. This is the full story of how Russians landed in Burkina Faso. In early 2022, Burkina Faso was crumbling. The country had suffered repeated attacks from jihadist insurgents, killing thousands and displacing millions. The once peaceful rural regions had become battlegrounds. France, the former colonial ruler, had been a central military partner, deploying special forces and providing intelligence. But on the ground, the people saw little improvement. Many Burkinabe began to suspect that foreign troops were not there to help but to maintain control. They whispered that French helicopters flew over villages minutes before attacks. That their gold mines were quietly being siphoned by foreign companies while locals died defending the soil. This disillusionment came to a head when Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a 34-year-old artillery officer from the Muhaun province, staged a coup in September 2022. He overthrew the previous military junta led by Paul-Henri Damiba, claiming that Damiba had failed to end terrorism and was too loyal to France. "We are not against partnerships," Traoré declared in his first televised speech. "We are against slavery disguised as assistance." With Traoré now in charge, the message from Ouagadougou was clear: France's influence had run its course. In early 2023, the French ambassador was expelled. French troops, based at the Camboinson barracks on the outskirts of the capital, were given 30 days to leave. Burkina Faso's decision echoed similar moves by neighboring Mali, which had also expelled French troops after a coup. Suddenly, France's military architecture in the Sahel was crumbling. In Paris, officials were stunned. In Washington, eyebrows were raised. For years, Burkina Faso had been seen as part of a Western axis in West Africa, critical in the fight against jihadists. But now, it was breaking ranks and looking east. Even before the French had fully withdrawn, rumors began swirling in Ouagadougou. Men with pale skin and Slavic accents had been spotted near the military airport. Foreign vehicles without license plates were seen heading into the forested training zones around Pula and Fadan Gourma. Journalists hinted at it. Analysts debated it on air. But no one had proof yet. Behind closed doors, emissaries from the Russian Federation and representatives from the Wagner Group, a private Russian paramilitary organization, had been meeting with Burkinabe officers. Wagner, already active in Mali and the Central African Republic, offered something Western forces never did: unconditional support. Wagner did not demand democratic reforms. They did not issue press statements condemning coups. They offered guns, drones, and muscle. In return, they asked for access to gold mines and geopolitical loyalty. It was a devil's bargain, but in a country besieged by extremists, many felt the devil they didn't know might be better than the one they did. In March 2023, Prime Minister Apollinaire Joachim Kylum de Tambela flew to Moscow on a low-profile diplomatic visit. On paper, it was described as a cultural exchange. In truth, it was an arms negotiation. He met with senior Russian officials, including members of the Defense Ministry and former Wagner strategists. They discussed radar systems, drones, jungle warfare support, satellite intel, and anti-insurgency training. Burkina Faso's leaders requested military gear. Russia offered it. But with one condition: a formal request for cooperation. By July 2023, Traoré was invited to the Russia-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg. There, he delivered a speech that would go viral across the continent. How can a continent so rich remain so poor? How can we, who feed the world with our gold, our cobalt, our uranium, remain hungry? We are victims of our wealth, and we shall defend it. In the audience, President Vladimir Putin nodded silently. That night, behind security-shrouded doors, a pact was sealed. On the evening of September 1, 2023, under the cover of night, the first Russian Ilyushin transport aircraft landed at the Bobo Dioulasso military airstrip. On board were 16 Russian military instructors, 10 translators, crates of equipment, encrypted radios, and 2 unmanned aerial surveillance drones. The next day, a second wave landed in Ouagadougou, this time with heavier gear, light armored vehicles, mobile radar units, and anti-mine devices. Wagner agents, although no longer officially tied to Moscow following the death of Yevgeny Prigozhin, were embedded among the troops as advisors. The Burkinabe military had constructed temporary housing near Koudougou, where joint training exercises were to begin. Russian and Burkinabe troops were seen patrolling together weeks later in the north. For the first time in years, certain red zones saw relief. The Russian flag fluttered beside Burkina Faso's green-red-gold on select bases, quietly but unmistakably. Meanwhile, something bigger was brewing. In the wake of Traoré's realignment, Niger and Mali followed suit. All 3 countries, now ruled by military juntas, faced similar threats: terrorism, Western pressure, and economic sanctions from ECOWAS. So, in September 2023, they signed a mutual defense pact, the Alliance of Sahel States, AES. Its core mission was to defend against insurgencies and external aggression. Russia, while not a signatory, pledged full military support to the alliance. In April 2025, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov hosted the foreign ministers of the Sahel states in Moscow. There, he vowed to help create a joint 5,000-man force, with Russian trainers, surveillance support, and heavy weaponry. Lavrov reportedly told them, "We have no colonies. Only partners. You are the lions. We bring only the spear." As the months passed, Russian influence deepened beyond the battlefield. Mining agreements were signed with mysterious Russian firms for gold, manganese, and rare earth minerals. The Tambao mine, once courted by Canadian and French investors, was now under review by a Russian-backed consortium. Russian language schools opened quietly in Bobo Dioulasso. A new state media channel aired nightly in Russian-accented French, pushing narratives of sovereignty, Pan-Africanism, and anti-Western critique. Yet, not all Burkinabe welcomed the change. Civil society groups raised concerns over Wagner's opaque operations. Human rights observers reported abuses in northern villages during counterinsurgency raids. The government denied all claims, but silence hung like thick smoke. Still, to many, Traoré remained a hero, a new Sankara rising. The West took notice. Sanctions were whispered. U.S. diplomats visited Ghana and Benin, offering military packages to contain Russian expansionism. France lobbied ECOWAS to isolate the Sahel trio. But it was too late. A new axis had been born. In the capitals of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, Russian was now a language of power. China watched closely, seeing in Traoré a possible gateway for its Belt and Road ambitions. Algeria and Iran signaled interest in Sahel diplomacy. The African Union remained cautious but curious. In the dust-blown streets of Ouagadougou, murals appeared, Traoré with a clenched fist, a lion at his feet, and the Kremlin in the background. As of mid-2025, Russia remains embedded in Burkina Faso's security infrastructure. Joint patrols, arms shipments, and secret operations continue. New military academies are being constructed with Russian oversight. But the road ahead is not smooth. Jihadist groups have vowed retaliation. Pro-Western elements inside the military plot quietly. And the economy remains fragile. Yet one thing is certain: the Russians have landed, not with flags or speeches, but with purpose, partners, and promises. And Captain Ibrahim Traoré? He remains at the helm, steering Burkina Faso into uncharted waters, determined to reclaim what he calls Africa's stolen destiny. The Red arrival was not just about Russia. It was about Africa's reckoning with its past and rewriting its future.